Let's verify some European invoices in the FlexiCapture verification station. Here we have a task, and we can commence verification by clicking Get Task. In the batch, there are 5 documents. The invoice status for European invoices is generally toggled on, and so here we can see all 3 invoice statuses. Valid, where the invoice has no rule errors and is legally compliant with corresponding country regulations. Rejected. Here the invoice is legally non-compliant. This may mean there is something wrong with the invoice, or perhaps FlexiCapture failed to detect some required fields on an invoice. You'll have to discover the reason why a given invoice is rejected during verification. Exception. Here, the invoice is legally compliant, but there might be some other issues with this invoice. For instance, the vendor was not found, or there is an arithmetic error on the invoice. Let's start verifying, and we'll see why there are rejected and exception invoices inside the batch. We'll start with the first document, which is valid, and, as it turns out, has no uncertain characters to verify. Nevertheless, we will have a look at this document and check what data was extracted. Note that there are status and invoice type fields, which you can modify if needed. We'll explore the status field later. The invoice type may be automatically changed to credit note if the invoice depicts money due rather than money owed. You can edit this field if needed. There are 2 field groups, business unit and vendor, and this data is captured using a special technique, comparing the data found on the invoice with the data in the dataset. Let's take a look inside. The name field is highlighted on the invoice image in green. Also found were street, zip code, and city. There's an empty field, address. This is correct. This field will be detected by ABBYY neural networks when the business unit is not found in the dataset. VAT ID. We cannot see this field's value on the image, but the data is still here. This is because FlexiCapture grabbed that value from the dataset for this business unit. In the business unit and vendor groups, you can see a Find button. By clicking on this button, a dataset lookup window appears. Here you can see several of the most fitting business units from the dataset. And we see that the selected business unit, ABBYY Software Iberica, carries values such as dataset ID, country code, and VAT ID. This is how FlexiCapture knows what the VAT ID and ID fields are for this business unit. Let's close this group and see what fields are found in the vendor group. Here we have the vendor name, and again you can see the green field region highlighted on the invoice. The vendor VAT ID is printed on the invoice. We can see it at the bottom of the document. The vendor address was found, street, zip code, city, and the bank details are here on the invoice as well. The address field is empty. Once again, it would be populated via the ABBYY neural networks if FlexiCapture could not locate this particular vendor in the vendor dataset. Let's explore what other fields were captured. Here you can see the invoice number and invoice date fields and the total amount. We can expand the tax details group and see the net amount, and tax rate. If on the invoice there are goods for which different tax rates apply, then you will see several net amounts, and tax rates, and you'll see the sum in the total net and total tax fields. Next, we need to check the line items. On this invoice, there's only one row. We have the article, description, quantity, unit price, the line item total price, and the VAT rate. The currency has been placed here automatically according to the business unit country code. The only thing that could need improvement here is the description field. FlexiCapture found the description in its proper place, but let's also include the item weight. Let's zoom in on the image so we can easily delete the initial field region and draw a new extended region. That's much better. The next time a similar invoice appears, FlexiCapture should tackle the description better due to machine learning. Okay, let's zoom back out. It's worth pointing out that on this version of the verification station, the colors that are used to indicate fields on the image differ from the FlexiCapture default colors. This was done on purpose to highlight that the fields can be customized for individual preference. To make such adjustments, go to the Tools menu and select Options. Here on the Colors tab, desired colors may be selected. For example, the color which highlights the error frame can be adjusted. Let's pick something different, like dark orange. We can change the colors of field regions on the document images. Here, what we see as yellow now can be changed to light blue, or what is in green right now to a more pleasant lilac tone. Here you can see the new color directly on the image. You can use this approach to make verification more aesthetically attuned to your preferences if desired.